What's up, guys? It's me again, Christian Rodriguez. And if you're watching this video, it's probably because you want to find out a way how you can handle people who throw problems at you, right? You don't want to deal with other people's problems because they aren't your problem. They're someone else's problem. So I'm going to talk about why on what I learned from it from Roger Dawson, right? Based on the book Secrets of Power Negotiating. Highly great book, but this one principle can definitely change your life if you know how to implement them, right? So we'll start, right? The first thing, right, is you don't want to get emotional, right? You want to be you don't want to get emotional, but you also want to acknowledge the other person, right? Because someone might, it's called a hot potato, right? At least the way Dawson describes it. And it's basically like, you have a hot potato, someone has a hot potato in their hand. What do? Maybe they toss it at your hand. They toss it at you. And you catch, you're like, ooh, it's a hot potato. Ooh, I got to get rid of it, right? What you have to do is with that hot potato, you have to be able to direct it back to them. So throw the hot potato back at them because it's their hot potato, not your hot potato. Obviously, the hot potato is a figure of speech, but the hot potato is their problem, right? So people have their own problems. People have their own things they want to deal with, and sometimes people want to make their problems your problems. So what you need to do is take the problem that they've thrown at you and politely deflect it back at them, right? That's what you have to do, right? And obviously he explains this in a business sense, right? And it's a negotiation book, and he talks about how this often occurs in a business sense, but it also occurs more than just business. It occurs in all aspects of life. It occurs socially. It can occur with girlfriends, with romantic relationships, with family members, with social life, with colleagues, right? Acquaintances. It happens all the time, right? So I think this is really good to know and how to handle, right? And you don't want to be emotional when someone throws their problem in your face, right? And then the second thing I would recommend you do is to acknowledge their issue, right? Based on what Dawson said. Acknowledge it, right? Be like, oh, I completely understand it. But then you throw it back in a polite way, right? You would ask them like, oh, so how are you going to handle it, right? What are you going to do about it? Like different questions like that. And what that's going to do is going to force a person to think of a solution instead of them just dumping their issues onto you. So now it's their responsibility, right? Obviously, it depends on the situation. So I'll give you an example of it, right? So I have it here. Like a common objection, right? If you're selling a product, is it's on a budget, right? And maybe it is out of their budget, right? And you'll be like, oh, fair enough. Yeah. You definitely want to make sure you're in budget. It's like, but when does your budget cycle end, right? And today's December. I mean, yeah, I think tomorrow or soon it's the beginning of December. So say it's November, it's the end of November, right? It's like, oh, when does your budget cycle end? And they're like, oh, it ends December 31st. It's like, oh, it ends December 31st. It's like, oh, you could just take the product now and then I charge you January 1st. And then that right there, that wasn't your problem, right? The budget issue. It was just a smokescreen, right? If you didn't do any digging, you probably wouldn't have made the sale, right? And I have other examples too, right? So another example, right? This is like a real life example, right? So maybe you have a girlfriend, right? You have a girlfriend. She went to her friend Becky's house, right? She went to her friend Becky's house and she wants you to pick her up, right? So you get in a car and you go to pick her up at her friend's house, right? And then maybe your girlfriend walks over with one of her other friends, right? They get to the car and she's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, can you also drive Sarah home? She lives on the opposite side of town, right? And she'll say, oh, I promise she'll make it up to you, right? Now you're kind of in a position where you have to handle it correctly. Either you take her, either you inconvenience yourself and you end up driving to the opposite side of town, wasting your own gas and time to drop this girl off home that you didn't know you were going to drop off to be a chauffeur, or you handle it properly, right? And the thing is, there's also the other option that you can be just an a-hole and be like, no, I'm not dropping you home, which maybe you don't want to be an a-hole at that moment, right? So the way you would handle it is you tell Sarah, or you ask, oh, I can't drive you home tonight. Sorry about that. You can use two. So you have two options you could do. You can use the higher authority, right? So maybe you could say, oh, tomorrow, oh, I'd love to drop you off normally, but my friend, this is my friend's car. He needs the car later to pick up his mother, and she's not going to have enough time. Now you could get leeway, right? And the hot potato method, right, would be something like it's completely understandable, right? But I only came to pick you up and drive you home. How can you handle it, right? So like it could be, I completely understand. It's like, but I only came to pick you up and drive you home. How are you going to handle it? It makes your girlfriend's friend worry about who's going to pick them up, right? It's going to make them worry about how they're going to get home. They're going to start thinking about it. Oh, maybe I order an Uber. Maybe I get a Lyft. Maybe I ask someone else to pick me up. Maybe I order a taxi. Whatever it is, right? It makes them think about a different solution, a different person who can pick them up. And these are just two examples of it. But the point is that you have to get good at deflecting people's problems back at them, right? In a polite way. You don't have to do it in a rude way, which I know people can do that, and people definitely do that. But you don't have to do it in a rude way. You could do it in a way that it still saves you, but it also doesn't inconvenience you, right? It doesn't put you into it doesn't make someone else's problem your problem. And the issue about it is if you don't handle this right away and you wait for someone else's problem, the person's going to assume that that problem is also your problem, and it's your job to solve it if you don't address it right away. So when you address it right away, it reminds them, oh yeah, this is my own problem, so I don't need to deal with this. Because at the end of the day, right, we all have problems, right? We all have our own problems we're dealing with. So why the fuck are we going to deal with someone else's problem? Why are we going to make life harder for us and just deal with someone else's responsibility and problem that they just need to deal with, right? And that's the mindset that you need to have, right? It's not your job to save other people. It's not your job. It's their job to do that. So this makes it this makes this so much better, right? When you deflect the other person's problem at them, because now they're proactive. They're thinking proactively on how to fix it, right? And that's what you need to do. It's very subtle, right? Even if someone's venting, right? They're venting their issues at you. You could even say, "Oh, I completely get how you feel. I would feel that way too. Have you thought of any ways that you thought of fixing that issue, right? Have you thought of what have you thought of that's gonna fix this issue, right? Different stuff like that, right? Because it's subtle, but it's like it sets a boundary in place. It sets a boundary like, hey, I'm not your therapist, and you need to figure out this problem yourself, right? And this is super important. So I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate you guys for listening. Subscribe. I'm going to keep creating more content, and take care.